By now, you may have watched Transformers Combaticons, a Transformers fan pilot I produced across the last couple years. Today I want to go behind the scenes of the creative process to make that pilot, showcasing one scene in particular. About midway through the episode, the cosmically powered Professor Princess reveals that she has knowledge and control over every single dimension in the Transformers multiverse, and then proceeds to thrust Onslaught, Blastoff, Vortex, Swindle, and Brawl into the multiverse. This is what we're going to start by breaking down. But before we get going, quick reminder, there's an Indiegogo campaign for a follow-up Transformers Combaticons adventure called Wrath of the Junkions. We did this in response to the countless comments asking for more Combaticons, but it's currently not yet at 20% funded. So contribute to that if you want to see more, and let's go into how we created the multiverse. So this sequence has been present since the very first draft of the script. And I knew from the beginning that this would be the most complicated sequence to execute. It all began in the script phase. This, in its incredibly vague glory, is how the multiverse sequence looked on the page. You can see a number of differences from the final product. A portal opens inside Professor Princess's mouth rather than her dress. Dialogue's absent, and there's a little bit more to it at the end. Now we'll walk through all of the changes. I had a pretty clear picture in my mind of how this would visually go. So I actually did the first pass storyboards, which were solely done with scribbles. And I'll play that first pass for you now, along with the temp score from Transformers Animated that I'd used as a placeholder. Get a mental grasp of the perspective grid? I actually created a giant square prism in Minecraft and rotated the camera around accordingly. Then I screenshotted each background and traced it into the storyboards. There was another sequence at the end where the Combaticons shatter through glass shards to other dimensions, with their G2 and shattered glass incarnations looking back at them. To be 100% honest with you, I don't remember why I cut this. I think I was just tired of boarding, wanted to call it a day, and never got back to it, and then forgot about it. Obviously there was going to be a lot of animation on this sequence, and so it needed a bit of a better storyboard. This was not going to cut it as a visual reference for anyone beyond me. So at this point I hand it off to IDW comic book cover artist Jaro Loose Screws. They refine and revise the whole thing, and this is what they come up with. An interesting side note is that they actually overboarded IDW Brawl's Doctor Strange Soul Kick thing. And that needed to be like stripped down and reverted back to the original just because it would have been pretty complex to execute with all the different animation styles in play. Also keep in mind at this point that Soul Punch thing had not been used in anything since 2016's original Doctor Strange. And there was no indication it would return. I thought it was just a cool callback I would do, but then it shows up in the Spider-Man No Way Home teaser. I think it was the thumbnail, in fact. So I was like, oh, okay, damn it. Well, now it's not as original that I did it, even though I wasn't original in the first place. But it was already boarded at that point, and it was fine. So the animatic's complete. The whole 22-minute episode is, and at this point we bring in the voice actors to do their dialogue. We did that casting video, and I cast the Combaticons. A lot of lines, a lot of Brawl's lines in particular throughout the episode were not in the script, and were just kind of improvised during recording sessions, and Brawl's line,
I don't know what just happened.
Is one of them.
I don't know what just happened.
And now we move on to animation. There are 7 different art styles represented in this sequence. The Bay Movies, Generation 1, Fall of Cybertron, Animated, IDW Publishing's Till All Are One, Transformers Energon, and the main Combaticons style. The original plan was to assign a different animator for each continuity. Thomas Patel, a wonderful animator from Ireland, did about 1/5 of the total episode, and he tackled all of the animation of the main universe Onslaught, Brawl, Swindle, Vortex, Blastoff. He left everything else blank for the others to fill in. For the IDW artwork of Brawl and Bruticus, I went to the artist Lynn Daxey and had her render keyframes of the characters in the art style of Sarah, Petray, Durucher, Transformers, Till All Are One, which is, in my opinion, the best written depiction of the Combaticons in the entire history of the franchise, despite their very limited roles in the story. Also early in this process involved gathering all of the production material assets for each individual character that appears in this sequence. I was able to track down the Combaticons and learned that a model for Bruticus was never formally made, so I just gave this thing to Lynn Daxey. Energon Bruticus Maximus was assigned to Ryan Fuller, who also created the Energon Sideways showcased in the credits. I had him make it dab. And Ryan, of course, was the 3D lead of this whole project. And he's responsible for designing and animating Transformers Prime, Professor Princess. I had an animator lined up for Animated and one lined up for Generation 1, but unfortunately both fell through. I tried to shop around for different candidates, but ultimately I just wound up taking both of them. In true Keyan Carlile fashion, I just traced as much as I could out of the show, like trace this drawing of the arm, trace this drawing of the body, stitch them all together. That's what I do as someone who cannot draw. And you know what? Earthspark very clearly did that with its G1 montage in the pilot, so I don't feel bad. And animated Bruticus's head is based on a sketch that Derek J. Wyatt did at a convention, I believe. I colored it and I got some input from Josh Perez as well. A quick thing, the boxing glove that shoots out of Swindle's chest, you know what I actually did? I traced that from Derek's sketches of Octopunched to make sure I had the glove fully matching the animated aesthetic. And on that note, the G1 Professor Princess was designed by Daniel Hosworth on Instagram. So thank you to him. So someone fell through on the Fall of Cybertron stuff and 2 people fell through on the Bayverse stuff. So ultimately, both of those wound up going to the Name Brand Company, who wasn't a part of the original equation but stepped on because he was interested in the project. And Name Brand Company, for those who don't know, is the creator of the Cybertron Falls fan film. And he also offers to do all of the comping work to bring all of these 2D and 3D elements together, which saved me a lot of work and time for this particular sequence. And so with everyone in place, it was just a matter of waiting for the animation to come together. And then eventually it did, and Name Brand Company began putting everything together. As he did like refined passes, I had more and more ideas. The first idea I had was to make TLK Onslaught physically in the Bayverse. If you look at the animatic, he's just like on a platform in the middle of a void. It never really made sense, but I couldn't think of anything else, and so Name Brand had actually animated him with a platform there at first, and then eventually it just hit me, and I was like, put him in the Michael Bay universe. And I kind of like explained to him how that would logistically work for that shot. He was like, perfect. At one point I'd considered like green screening myself in as a human running away, but I was just like exhausted by the end of Combaticons, and I didn't ultimately bother doing that at all. And the Name Brand Company also threw in a lot of other Bayverse Transformers like Ratchet, and I think Optimus is fighting Shockwave in the back. You can't really tell, but he just did that to populate the world, which is more than he had to do. I also decided to bring back the whole glass shattering thing, but rather than have it at the end, I decided it would look really good at the beginning. So the Combaticons shatter through several continuities now before Onslaught winds up in the Bayverse. The Name Brand Company also had the idea for the black bars to raise and lower from the top and bottom edges of the screen to replicate the aspect ratio of the Michael Bay movies as well as most movies. I originally had black bars on the sides of G1 Professor Princess to replicate that show's aspect ratio, because I thought it was clever, but then Earthspark does that in theirs, and I was like, alright, it's not that clever if I do it, and it just flowed better without black bars, so ultimately I took them off. So while the name brand company's working on it, he kind of exports off his work cut, and at that point, Will McCarthy comes in to score it. So Raja and Will kind of split the episode up, like alternating who does what. They were the two composers. Will has the multiverse scene. And something I really wanted was to have like recognizable themes from the other continuities kind of weave in as the alternate variations of them show up. And the challenge of that was the timing, because we kind of already had it boarded, already had it roughly animated. It would have been a lot of work to like slow that down depending on the music. I was suggesting a lot of music, Raja suggested some tracks. We wound up with Arrival to Earth playing when TLK Onslaught shows up, but it's a faster tempo version of it. Then G1 shows up, we did like the da-da-da-da-da-da-da. We got the Fall of Cybertron music playing when Blastoff shoots down. And then for animated, there was actually quite a challenge to get animated music in here, because the thing about animated is it uses like specific instruments, like electric guitars and drums and stuff. To use the correct animated instrumentation just wouldn't have worked with the rest of the sequence, because Will wanted it all to vibe together. And so it became like really hard to get the animated music recognizable. He did like 6 different variations, and for all of them I was like, I don't hear animated in it at all. Because it's like the most generic music of all time, no disrespect to Sebastian Evans II. But finally we got one to work. A big complication was getting all of the clips and the footage and in the background. That's something I kind of had in my mind since the beginning. I think Alex actually suggested that at first. So once Name Brand Company came on, he was like, yeah, I'd love to. So the first step was just getting a huge selection of clips. I have a lot of blind spots to Transformers, so I actually went to a lot of the Transformers YouTubers. I was like, give me random clips from all the shows that I haven't seen, that only you guys are nerdy enough to have seen. So Emperor Kumquat was giving me stuff from like Super God Master Force and Victory, and Paper Plane came in with like Beast Wars 2, Beast Wars Neo stuff. Commodore Cam and Alex were getting a lot of Unicron trilogy stuff. And a lot of like the cast and crew of Combaticons offered a ton of suggestions as well. So then we filled up this massive list, and then I spent like 3 days just collecting all of this footage. It took so long. And so then I was gonna hand this all off to the Name Brand Company so he could kind of put it all into a giant grid, import that as an MP4 into his project, but his computer actually couldn't like handle the After Effects file. It was just too slow for him to work with. So he was like, I don't think this is gonna work. Let's just have a few kind of spiraling the outside of it. And I was like, no, I think I'll get you an MP4. So at that point, I'm not super fluent with After Effects, but I went into Premiere and I created this massive grid file and a .prproj file. And I put all this stuff from the whole franchise into these 2 giant blocks with electrical grids, and constantly we were finding problems as he actually inserted them. Like, oh, there's a black square on this one. Oh, the electrical green screen grid disappears right here, because I just had like green screen blue line dividing all of them. But finally, eventually, we got, to the best of our ability, 2 blocks that he just inserted on his end. So there was so much back and forth between him and I to get this to finally come together, and this was like the last thing we were working on. So he was like wrapping that up the day I was leaving for TFCon, believe it or not. just a week or so before that episode released on YouTube. So finally, the whole multiverse sequence came together, and this is what wound up in the final cut of Transformers Combaticons.
Primus, help us!
I don't know what just happened.
So obviously a lot more went into that scene than most scenes, but still, like, every scene had a little story to it. For example, in the original script, when the Combaticons first combine into Bruticus, the bit was gonna be that they take one step and then they completely fall apart. But then, the Cyberverse Season 4 special comes out with the Dinobots, and that exact same joke is in it. The same timing, the same everything. And at that point, it had already been boarded by Casey, but I was like, no, we cannot, it's too similar. So I needed to think of something else. And then I had this idea, oh, what if a giant photorealistic arm comes out of Professor Princess's forehead, grabs Bruticus, and throws him to the ground? So that's what was boarded, and then eventually when I was animating that scene, I decided to have the arm come out of Professor Princess's mouth. And yes, I had Professor Princess's voice actor / my high school theater teacher come over and just yank her arm through a hole in front of a blue screen in my garage at the time. So, and what I was gonna ask is, could your hand just like, you stick your hand through the hole and then you close your fist to grab him,
So,
and then, yeah, like that, but maybe a little faster. Just like sudden, and then, yeah. Yeah, like that. Okay, 3, 2, 1, action. All right, let's do that and just do another one. Maybe don't like scrape the table because you'll be like in the air in front of your hand. There's this brief scene where Professor Princess turns the Combaticons into bread.
You are now bread! We're toast!
And what that encompassed behind the scenes was driving an hour to my parents' house to use their backyard, buying spray paint and bread at the store in the middle of the night, and just spray painting bread. Then dangling that bread on fishing wire in front of blue and green screens for the majority of an afternoon. All that for like 4 seconds. We're toast. We're toast. We're toast. The interviewer recently became the interviewee. A YouTuber named Paul Denoto talked to me in depth about the lengthy creative process of producing this episode. He'll be releasing that on his channel soon, so keep an eye on that if you're interested in something like that. If you want to see more Transformers Combaticons, please consider donating to the Wrath of the Junkions Indiegogo. If we can get like 4,500 or so, then we'll have enough to release the episode as an animatic with the voice actors in it. At this current pace, unless we hit 10,000, there's no way we can really animate Wrath of the Junkions. But thank you so much everyone for watching. Hope you all enjoyed this video that you just watched. Follow me on Twitter and the internet and stuff, and subscribe to me. Bye!